more than 250,000 Allied soldiers. That should have made me feel safe. Instead, it told me exactly how huge the war was about to become. The Eastern Empire was preparing a storm, and if that storm reached Tempest, I already knew my answer. Anyone who tries to touch this paradise will be crushed. If you're enjoying this series, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe. It helps the right viewers find the channel, and it shows the AI rendering and editing time is worth keeping going. Thanks for helping the channel grow. So let's pick up at the briefing table just as the third sheet came out. Benimaru took out a third sheet. He said,
"Here is what we need to discuss. These are the forces affiliated with people besides me."
Finally, something new. The first two sheets had mostly been a count of forces we already had. The only real surprise was Gobta leading the first corps, and since I was the one who suggested that, it was not much of a surprise to me. I leaned over the sheet with more interest than I meant to show. It was divided into a right wing and a left wing. The right wing covered our established corps. The first corps under Gobta had about 12,000 soldiers. The second corps under Geld had about 37,000. The third corps under Gabiru had about 3,000. Altogether, the standing force came to roughly 52,000. That was a pretty terrifying number for a country like ours. Then again, Tempest had already passed 1 million citizens and the population was still climbing fast. Growth like that was what let us keep an army this large. There was another reason too. Geld's second corps also functioned as a construction team. If they could only fight, we would have been stuck with about 15,000 soldiers available outside the construction lane, and that was nowhere near enough to face the Eastern Empire. I really had to hand it to Geld and his people. Benimaru and I had worried over that problem more than once. Benimaru repeated the basic plan.
Once war begins, we can call back Geld and his corps. That much will work as planned, but it is still not enough. The Western nations each retain their own militaries, I know, but having them deployed presents its own problems.
I nodded. Yeah. We control the council now, so it would be a waste not to use that. But if we drag national armies around, the backlash could get ugly. Benimaru agreed.
And if trouble arises inside the Western nations, they would have no deterrent left. That could become dangerous.
Right. Tempest is stable, but if people in the West start doubting our rule, every job after this gets harder. Benimaru's answer to that old concern was written on the left side of the sheet. Western deployment, 150,000. Magic Born United, 30,000. Volunteer Army, 20,000. I stared at the numbers for a second. Those are huge. What exactly are the left-wing forces? Benimaru explained.
They are under our command, more or less. The Western deployment serves the Council, as I mentioned before. It is separate from each nation's standing army, and it is directly employed with money from the Council or from us in practice.
That made sense on paper. If the Council had given us military rights, then Council-serving forces fell under our command. Still, the number did not. But were there really that many? The Council force I remembered was tiny by comparison. Most of its soldiers were knights brought in by counselors from their own countries, and they were mainly assigned to security around the arena in Anglesia's capital. They were only about 1,000 strong. Each Western nation handled its own peacekeeping with its own army. The Council almost never sent out soldiers itself, so there had never been much reason for it to maintain a large force. That was probably why it had handed military control to us so easily. And I had not asked for those rights because I wanted to boss armies around. I wanted Magitrain railroads across the Western nations, and it was a pain to ask for approval every time I sent Tempestian engineers into the field. If real trouble broke out, I planned to send our own army anyway, so the old council soldiers had been returned to their countries for the time being. What we created after that was supposed to be a peacekeeping force funded by us and recruited locally. Humans would be easier for the Western nations to accept than monsters or demi-humans. Benimaru continued.
Yes, we disbanded the old army once and then it grew even larger. According to Testarossa's report, rumors spread that joining the force meant free meals and lodging. Once recruitment began, people arrived in droves.
Yeah, but this is a peacekeeping force. We do not need 150,000 people for that. Each nation already had the right to police itself. If we started rounding up criminals, that would be overreach. The force's real work was disaster prevention, engineering support, and rear area help. I would have expected 10,000 people at most, not 15 times that. Benimaru said Testarossa had treated the number as demand from all the nations, then he walked me through the details. After Testarossa took control of the council, she pushed through bold reforms. I had approved them, but the effects were bigger than I had imagined. The nations would lead the projects while Tempest provided advice, technology, labor, and organization. In government jargon, it was official development assistance. The council supplied public funds. Tempest supplied state-backed labor, hired locals, gave technical support, and managed regional requests. Tempestians earned work and wages. Our partners received the support they badly needed. On the surface, it was a clean win for everyone. Of course, there was no such thing as a free lunch. If Tempest covered construction costs, we recovered those costs through local water rights. If we built train tracks, we collected taxes on train usage fees over the long term. As with the highways, we handled maintenance in exchange for customs waivers and other rights. It was very Demon Lord-like if I thought about it too hard. Smile, help everyone, improve their lives, and quietly secure permanent profits from things they had not learned to value yet. Still, our partners really did benefit, so it was not as if we were robbing them blind. The larger nations would eventually want to handle infrastructure themselves. Maybe they could not do it now, but once they watched us work, they could copy our methods, learn our technology, and run things on their own. Honestly, I considered that natural. Losing some regional interests would sting, but the competition would also be exciting. Benimaru gave me the catch.
Even the large nations are pressing us for railway infrastructure as quickly as possible.
And because Tempest does not have enough engineers, you deployed the rear support people we recruited. Benimaru nodded.
That is right. Apparently even they were not enough, so we began fielding local people and having them join us as well.
That was how a support system turned into a ridiculously large group of soldiers. I had given Testarossa broad authority as my diplomatic officer. I had also told her not to report every small matter to me. Because of that, even Benimaru had only learned the full scale recently. But isn't that what the large nations want? I asked. If we train technicians for them, they can run things themselves. It would be more efficient than spying on us. A trained technical class could become the backbone of each native country. We might lose some interests in the region, but if that led to real development, I could live with it. Benimaru pushed the sheet toward me a little.
It does not seem to be that way. If those technicians become valuable, the nations would not want to let them go, would they?
No, maybe they would not. Then the point hit me. Wait! Are you saying you took all the support troops Testarossa gathered and put them into the Western deployment? Benimaru grinned.
That is right.
It would have been a waste to train all those people and let them scatter. Benimaru had decided to turn them into a proper civic defense and peacekeeping force. They could train for disaster rescue, guard dignitaries, run drills, handle accidents, and support engineers, he said.
Testarossa was finished with them and was about to let them go, but that seemed like such a waste to me. I thought I could find work for them, so I named them the Western Deployment myself.
That was a good decision, Benimaru. He accepted the praise with a little embarrassment.
No need for praise.
Still, I meant it. 150,000 sounded absurd until I imagined them spread across the entire West. Used that way, the number almost made sense, and if the force helped us keep our interests in those lands, they would more than earn their keep. Next came the Magic-Born United. Okay, I understand the Western deployment. What is this Magic-Born United? Benimaru answered.
It is mainly composed of Magic-Born who served Clayman. Geld had them working as prisoners of war, and we borrowed the ones suited for combat. In exchange, we are filling the construction gaps with high orcs from completed projects.
So the construction work would keep moving. That was good. Experienced fighters were better than raw amateurs, but there was a problem. Those guys would not be very cooperative, would they? Clayman's Magic-Born had mostly been B rank, with some at A rank and beyond. As individuals, they were powerful. As an army, they were weak. They were a horde ruled by terror, not trained soldiers, and there was not enough time to turn them into a proper force from scratch. Benimaru did not seem worried.
Thanks to Geld, the selfish and violent ones are not in the force. Even if they were, I shut them up.
Of course he did. Benimaru could overpower most of them without breaking stride. Fine. But are they not used to regular work now? I do not want to force them into battle. Benimaru shook his head.
This is something they suggested. They wanted to show you, Sir Rimuru, that they could be useful to you.
They did? That surprised me. The former claimant forces were volunteering. Benimaru gave the reason.
Good food, good company, a boss who says they are needed, and decent work. That is what they valued. They want to stake their powers on protecting it. They were enthusiastic.
It was unexpected, but I appreciated it. Conscripted soldiers were useless in a real war. If someone was defending their homeland, that was different. But otherwise, surrender was usually smarter than dying for a ruler they did not believe in. No one wanted to become a slave to another country. If people were colonized and squeezed dry, they might pretend to obey, but they would keep looking for a chance to revolt. An invader could never ignore the feelings of the people living there. The people had to take responsibility for the future they chose, and the ruler had to answer to them. That was why I thought forced patriotism was one of the worst things you could do to people. Tempest existed under my protection. I had no intention of listening to outsiders who came in with arrogant demands. If someone did not want to defend this country, I honestly did not mind if they left. What mattered was who I needed to protect. The companions who had stood with me from the founding of Tempest came first. If I had no citizens left to protect, I would probably leave too, then build a new nation somewhere else with people I saw eye to eye with. I did not have some sacred attachment to the land itself. But if people loved Tempest, the land we all belonged to, then I would answer that love with everything I had. No matter who attacked, I would smash them with every trick available to me. Even if Guy himself came at us, I was ready to use anything I could to kill him. I hoped it would never come to that, obviously. Guy was a freak of nature, but still. Benimaru went on.
They seemed honest to me. We also had volunteers from across the forest of Jura who heard rumors of an impending war. That is what makes up the Magic-born United.
Then, with a small chuckle, he added,
I did reject many of the weaker-looking ones, though.
Fair enough. If they had a chance to work hard for me by choice, I was glad for it. The volunteer army was different. It was made up of humans living in Tempest or nearby. If we lost this war, no matter how it happened, the entire forest of Jura would be dragged into ruin. These people had decided it was better to cooperate with us from the start. Most were adventurers and mercenaries. Many were immigrants we had accepted into the country. A lot were also the same reckless dungeon regulars who kept staking their lives underground, only to get eaten by my friends' avatars or my own. They numbered 20,000. I did not expect miracles from them, but that was still a decent force. Benimaru summarized the left wing.
That is its composition. The main difference between left and right is the degree of loyalty to you, Sir Rimuru.
To me? He explained.
The right-wing forces are ready to stake their lives for your nation or for you. The left wing is made up of people with different motivations. Some may have noble intentions, but we did not have time to interview every one of them, so I organized them this way.
I see. Behind me, Shion and Diablo were both nodding. I could almost hear the disturbing conclusions forming in their heads. Disposable pawns, then? Let us test them and keep only the true elites. That sort of thing. Surely that was just my imagination. Benimaru moved to the real problem.
The next issue is who to name as leader of each force.
We started with the Western deployment. It was the largest force, but it was scattered across the West. Benimaru said,
In terms of sheer numbers, we have 250,000 under our command, but I believe it is best to keep the 150,000 in the Western deployment where they are instead of moving them around.
Yeah. They still technically belong to the Council. Maybe we are free to move them, but I doubt we need to call them all here. If we gathered them in one place, I could transport them with magic. The hard part would be managing 150,000 people. Without a chain of command, they would never act like a sensible army. Worse, Imperial agents could start distracting them across the whole region. Benimaru agreed.
Let us keep the Western deployment where it is. There is no single leader for them, but I think Testarossa, as our diplomatic officer, can handle those duties as well.
I like that, but if war breaks out, I may call Testarossa back here. How would she stay in contact with them? The communications network connected the major cities through magical calls, communication crystals, and magisteel wiring. It did not reach every town and village yet. Each squadron in the deployment had at least one magic practitioner, so magical calls were possible, but managing them all was still a lot. Diablo answered from behind me.
That will not be a problem. Moss is capable of managing hundreds of squadrons at once.
Benimaru added.
That is what Soe told me as well. Moss was working with him in intelligence gathering, but he can also handle inter-squadron contacts on the side.
He can? What an incredibly useful demon. Then should we name Moss the unit leader? Benimaru hesitated.
I would feel bad for him if we did.
Even Diablo sounded sympathetic.
Given Testarossa's temperament, it would be a tragic situation for him. It hardly matters to me, of course, but I cannot help feeling a little sympathy.
If both Benimaru and Diablo pitied Moss, that told me enough. All right. Testarossa will be provisional leader for now. So the Western deployment would remain focused on peacekeeping. Unless something extraordinary happened, we would only deploy it elsewhere as a last resort. Testarossa would lead it temporarily, and we would replace her once someone more suitable appeared. Next came the Magic-Born United. Why don't I appoint Benimaru for that? Benimaru offered another name.
Personally, I would suggest Sir Rigger.
Rigger did have experience leading a security force, and his strength was nothing to ignore. But he was also Rigger's assistant. I was not sure he had time to lead a full army. If possible, I wanted to settle the war with our standing forces alone. The problem was that we did not know how much force the Eastern Empire had ready. Our spies were moving, but we still had no solid intelligence from inside Imperial borders. Training exercise rumors suggested at least 300,000 troops, and there was even a chance they could deploy over 1 million. If that happened, we could not leave the Magic-Born United unused. Rigger might manage, but asking him to command a ragtag army with almost no rehearsal felt dangerous. So I made the call. I really do want to leave this to you, Benimaru. In the future, we can call this mixed force the Red Numbers. Choose captains from Team Kurenai and make it into a coherent unit. We will make them the 4th Army Corps, and I want you as their direct commander. The name worked in my head because red meant they would stop anyone in their way. Get it? My first dad joke in a while landed silently inside my own skull. Right. I would keep that one to myself. No need to murder the mood. Benimaru accepted immediately.
Very well. In that case, I accept the appointment.
He must have expected I might ask. He did not look fazed at all. With his unique skill, born leader, he could cover for a lack of refinement among his troops, which made him the perfect person to lead a motley force like this. So Benimaru was now both my supreme commander and the commander of the brand new Red Numbers. That left the volunteer army. Benimaru asked me,
What do you intend to do with the volunteer army?
Then he winced before I could answer.
There is the problem.
The volunteer army included a lot of humans. If we placed a monster over them, Benimaru worried it could create unnecessary dissatisfaction. Good point. If word gets around that humans cannot advance in the land of monsters, that hurts our image. Shion cut in at once.
Anyone with such insipid thoughts is a weakling. A loser. They would never make anything of themselves anyway. You have no need to worry about them.
Shion, Okay, maybe I do not. But to someone who does not know us, that could sound a lot like the truth. Diablo agreed.
True. Humans can be a fickle bunch to deal with.
Shion did not appreciate brand image, but I did. If we let this make Tempest look discriminatory, that would be ridiculous and harmful, so the issue needed real thought. Diablo asked the obvious question.
Is there truly anyone suitable for the role?
There really was not. That was why Benimaru was stuck. I hear you. These are volunteers. We did not plan for them. Benimaru said.
But we cannot let them go idle.
No, we could not. I appreciated the humans who wanted to serve us, and I did not want that energy wasted. But if we were going to use them, we needed a commander. The volunteer army was even more ragtag than the red numbers, and if anyone could make it into a united force, the first name that came to mind was still Benimaru. So now what? Benimaru tried one option.
How about Gerard in Soei's force?
No way, we picked him up through a secret arrangement with Inglesia. He will not want his face in public. I did not know all the details of Testarossa's deal with him, but Gerard had been branded a traitor to humankind. If we did not treat him as dead in public, it would create needless trouble. I had no special duty to protect him, but I also had no reason to put him center stage. Benimaru let the idea go.
In terms of strength, I would have no complaints, but it is not realistic.
He had probably thrown the name out just to check it off the list. Limiting the choice to humans was a pain. We went through several names and none of them fit. Then Shion spoke up.
Perhaps we could enlist the Crusaders for a little help?
Benimaru and I looked at each other, then back at Shion. I would hardly think so. Benimaru started to say the same.
No, that would not work.
Shion cut in with another name.
Then how about Sir Masayuki?
Masayuki. The name hit me like lightning. That's it! Benimaru shouted at almost the same time.
Amazing, Shion.
That was the moment we decided to appoint Masayuki as leader of the volunteer army. We did not consult the man himself. Almost everyone would agree with the choice, which was exactly why we made it. The only person less than convinced was Masayuki. When I gave him the news, Masayuki held his head and groaned. Why me? I did not have much comfort to offer him. This was war. As sad as it sounded, what people wanted could not always come first. I had just been thinking the opposite, so yes, I knew that was convenient. But Masayuki was too valuable to leave unused. If the volunteer army was in his hands, things should be fine. Masayuki tried to wriggle free. He told me his chosen one unique skill had become easier to control in some ways. He was no longer showered in praise for every little thing, he said, but now he could not activate it whenever he wanted, so I should not expect too much from him. He was being a sore loser and looking for a way out. I knew it was not the whole truth. Masayuki was still wildly popular, and his influence around the world was massive. But do you not want to show off to Kenya and the other kids? That caught him. Masayuki faltered. If he accepted, I was willing to let him teach the kids whatever weird stuff he wanted and bask in their admiration. It will be all right. You can do it. Masayuki started to object. No buts. I helped you out when you had to face Bovix, remember? Masayuki's party had already cleared floor 50 where Bovix had been the guardian. During that expedition, I had used my avatar to soften Bovix up a little, letting Masayuki's party defeat him and take the credit. Masayuki could not deny that it saved him, so I pressed the point. Do we have a deal? At last, Masayuki gave in. All right. Between coaxing him and soothing his ego, I finally got a yes. Masayuki still sounded reluctant, but he admitted that I had helped him a lot and that he had wanted to repay me someday, so he accepted the job of volunteer army general. The volunteers had no complaints. If anything, they erupted like victory was already guaranteed. To them, marching under Masayuki was like starting with 20 points already on the board. No matter how hangdog his expression looked, there was no turning back. Masayuki sighed that he knew this would happen. He had said he controlled Chosen One better now. But what did that really mean? Maybe he was lying. Maybe his real luck was operating even without the skill. That would be even stranger. Leon was the opposite. Everything he did somehow made him look as bad as possible, apparently even back in his hero days. I guess it can be hard to fight your true nature. I tried to comfort Masayuki as best I could. I am sorry this got decided without you, but think about it. You will be the banner that inspires the entire army. And just like that, Masayuki the hero became leader of our 20,000 mostly human volunteers. The corrected organizational chart now had 52,000 troops on the right wing and 50,000 active troops on the left. Benimaru stood at the top, with the generals of each corps beneath him. That gave us over 100,000 soldiers to work with directly. I still was not sure it was enough to take on the Imperial Army, but there was no need to panic yet. Our preparations were moving. The Western deployment gave us 150,000 backup troops. Each Western nation was preparing support units from its own Night Corps. As the final defensive line, the Western nations' armies could be readied as well. If things became desperate, the total available force would rise above 250,000. That number was patched together from mercenaries and support troops, so I could not tell whether it was large or small. Testarossa had cajoled and threatened the council into cooperating, but they did not have much choice. If Tempest fell, the West would be next. We would not tap those forces unless our own situation became grim. We also had the terrain advantage, Veldora, and support from demon lords like Luminous and Leon. Milim had agreed to help too. Caroline's Warrior Alliance would be ready to deploy at a moment's notice, and as my personal trump card, I had Diablo's Black Corps waiting in reserve. Benimaru had command over the entire military, so the official hierarchy did not leave me directly controlling any corps. In practice, though, the Black Corps answered only to Diablo and the 3 demonesses under him. They were a fully independent army outside Benimaru's command. That was the sum of our forces, and we still had not accounted for whatever Yuki might do. Later, alone in my room, I muttered, "A war, huh?" Did the Empire truly want to conquer the Western nations? Guy had called his own motives a game. There had to be some connection there, some restless ulterior motive aimed at the Empire. But even so, my answer was simple. No matter who comes along, if they lay their hands on our little paradise, I will crush them. That was how I really felt. I would not make the same mistake twice. I was a demon lord now, and I could not afford to put the wrong things first. Meanwhile, as Rimuru and his companions prepared for war, the Eastern Empire was preparing as well. The difference was that the Empire had spent far more years at it. Slowly, carefully, step by step, its grand offensive had taken shape. Before long, the Empire would wake from its long slumber, and only a little time remained before the storm began.
Route confirmed. The next episode and full playlist are ready.
Then don't stop here. Keep watching in story order and subscribe before the next part drops.